Okay. Welcome, everybody. I know that this is a weird day for Back to Love to be podcasting, but schedules change. And if we've learned to do nothing else this year, we have learned to pivot. And so this is our example of pivoting to make sure that we can meet the schedules of our team today. I will give you guys some time to come on in here and get settled. It is going to be, it's going to be, the way that my sister said it, a very spiritual, what other words did you use, T?
A spiritual transparent. Not necessarily, but maybe towards the
end. All those things. But if you know us, and our brother Soul is on the podcast this evening. He is off camera for a moment, but you guys will see him on Facebook when he pops back in. Is anyone going to monitor Facebook? My computer works better when I turn the Facebook screen off.
I can do
it.
But
I can leave it on temporarily until we get everything set up.
I'm on it as well on my phone. So.
Right. Yeah, sometimes my computer, I don't know, between my internet and whatever is happening, I get sometimes my internet is interrupted when I have too much going on at one time, but I have everything else in my house turned off, so hopefully that won't be the case. I will leave Facebook up for as long as I can this evening. So yeah, I am going to give you guys just a couple of more minutes to come on in, and I really don't want to start until we have a couple of folks checking us out and hanging out with us this evening. So before I do the introductions for the team, I want to say very briefly, I am aware that today is 9/11, and I will send prayers out to those who experienced that tragedy in a personal way, to people that you lost. I know that there are people with health conditions now because of it. And so if you have been affected in any way, if someone you know has been affected in any way directly by 9/11, then I send my heartfelt love and hugs and condolences to you today. From a personal perspective, I ride the fence. I know it was a horrible situation, but I've been watching today a lot of the commemorative events all over the country, and there are people I don't see. That's all I'm saying. There are people I don't see. There are faces I don't see. And it's just hard for me to believe that not a single broadcast could find the people I didn't see. That's all. As a Black person in this nation, it is really hard. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. We ride a fine line between patriotism and pride. Sometimes it is difficult for us to commemorate the reparations, right? Because that means to repair. It's difficult for us to watch other groups of people being repaired in this country when people who look like me are still waiting. It is very difficult. And so there are weird feelings, and I appreciate this platform because it allows us to say those things and not be judged by those things and be okay and be honest about how we feel. So I can hurt for the people who lost loved ones or who suffered in any way, and at the same time hurt for people who have been in this country for 600 years and have yet to be repaired. It's hard. It's a weird place to be in. If anyone else would like to say anything about 9/11, where we give Soul time to get on the screen, I tell you, what we gonna do with him, y'all?
Love them, Lord. Just love them.
If not, that's okay. Y'all don't have to, but I wanted to acknowledge that we recognize what today is for a lot of people. And I didn't want to just gloss over that. So it looks like we are ready, unless anyone else has anything that they would like to add in that regard. Great. Okay, so of course you are with the Back to Love movement, and this evening we are discussing homosexuality and the Black community. And it's enough to say that and know that it is a loaded conversation, but we are going to start first by sharing just some of our own personal experiences and thoughts and evolution, right? With our interactions with the LGBT community, and you all can introduce yourselves before you give your brief input. I'll give mine last.
Okay. I guess I can go first. My name is Tierra, or T. I am queer and I am married to a woman. However, I am attracted to more than just male and female. It's not gender inclusive, it's all inclusive. So that's transgender as well. And there's so many like LGBTQA, and there's added more. So I don't know all of them. Excuse my ignorance, but I don't know all of the letters. I just know like everybody puts us all in one umbrella, but everybody is individually their own being. I guess I can start telling my story. I came out about 16 years old, but I've always felt like I've always been attracted to females since I can remember, which is 4 years old, and it was always this struggle between the two. And I met my first girlfriend in church, interestingly enough, and so that was interesting, and it's been an interesting ride. I was rejected by the church because of that. You know, it was very messy. Um, but I've learned uh, I've learned a lot through this experience and about myself as well. Because I've thought for a long time, feeling like I had to decide between one or the other. Like as a younger, I was like, yeah, I'm lesbian, strictly, dickly, and all of this stuff and whatever. But outside of a female relationship, there was still this low key attraction to guys. And I had male friends that, if I ever had that attraction, I would do whatever I had to do. So it's always been, a back and forth thing. Now I'm in a state where I am totally accepting that I'm attracted to all. It's not about the gender or, this specific identity, because like on a spiritual level and physical, the spiritual and physical, it's different. It is different. And femininity and masculinity are different from the physical male female spectrum. So there's a lot of awareness about what that really means to be tapped in, because all of us, no matter who you are, have that balance of masculine and femininity, and that does it has nothing to do with your gender. So we can talk about that later, but I'll end that there. And who's ever next?
You want me to go next? I'm Mo Poetry. I'm gonna go by Mo. And I kind of sit on behalf of parents because I have experienced this firsthand as a parent. I don't want anybody to try to figure out if they know my kids, which one, because I've also been stepmother to 6. So, yeah, stepmother a couple of times. But so I come from more from that perspective of knowing that a child that you love and are close to is battling with uh, those feelings of homosexuality. But I am a cisgender woman, just mean for those who don't know. So I'm born a woman. I am attracted to men. Never had any other attraction there. But it's funny, I have been uh, blamed or said to have been gay before because I spent 11 years of my life celibate, and people couldn't even believe me when I told them I was getting married. So, oh, uh, so I just wanted to sit in on this most of all to support T because, I would say she's more the focal of this particular podcast, but also just to support each other in our journey and learning and to how to help our community more.
Okay, I'm Soul. Um, I'm heterosexually straight, whatever you want to call that. I'm heterosexually a guy, and never really had much instances with homosexuality personally, other than the guys that came on to me, particularly in high school. And I would say one particular incident gave me an uneasy feeling, even though it wasn't said. Um, was trying to convince me of being homosexual when I really wasn't. And I've grew up in the church, so I had very much the abomination spiel of what homosexuality was. But even and it pretty much was a general thing, like those people you just don't associate with, you don't talk to them and stuff like that. But me, generally as a person, I like to know why instead of just being told not to do something. So I always interacted. And I feel like I've gotten a more broader perspective of it, especially as being as an artist, because I've met people like T um, and other members of the LBGT community and the art scene, and it's opened up my mind a little bit more. And especially studying James Baldwin, who was a openly homosexual person, has opened a lot of stereotypes that I didn't believe I had, but was prevalent. Uh, I'm here to kind of learn, but also be okay with talking about this, because I feel like if you bring up these type of conversations, it's very sensitive. And you get canceled, or it's a very sensitive topic, and I feel like just rightfully so. As I always say, America is a bottleneck of oppressing any and everyone, and the LBGT community has been oppressed for a very long time, and that's where the connection of empathy and compassion comes from me. Because if I can't be empathetic with someone who is being who is suffering just like I am suffering, how can I expect them to care for my suffering? So that's what it basically boils down to. And I'm here to start the conversation to bring some peaceful dialogue so we can see how much more we're alike as opposed to how different we are from one another.
Okay. So you guys know who I am. I am Wisdom. My mama named me Dawn. Um, I struggled most of the week with what to share um, for this podcast. First, I want to say that um, we're going to discuss this in the same vein that we have discussed everything else. And in that, there are times when our individual views, or even just the views that we bring up, that we hear out in the world, that may not reflect our personal views or those of this group, can sometimes rub people the wrong way. So my biggest fear in doing this, as Soul said, was being canceled. And I'll tell you what, to me, if there are people who decide that that's what they want to do, based on anything that is said here tonight, then I think that they should. I think it would be extremely unfair, and I think we're going to talk about that in this podcast, that we've given the same type of blows, good and bad, up and down, deep and surface, and to every topic that somebody would potentially be offended by. I struggle with a community of people who've decided that they can't be offended. And if you offend this group of people, everything is canceled. I think it's unfair. And so if that happens this evening, then we just got to take that on the chin. But I would hope that that wouldn't occur, because we've said as many difficult things about everything. And this is probably our 30th podcast. I actually planned on counting tonight, but I forgot. If you count all the poetry shows and everything that we did all from this time last year to now, we are in about a year's long. So I would hope that that wouldn't be the case. But if you feel so compelled, then I say have at it. So my personal experience, what I'm going to say is that I've had personal experiences with homosexuality. I can remember being very young and having what I believe was an attraction to women. Now I am a straight woman. I don't identify as cis because I don't know what that is, and people decided that's what they were going to name people, and that's fine. But if we're just talking about identity, I just identify as a Black woman. That's it. I mean, all that other stuff, I don't know. But but I've had personal experiences and two very permanent situations. I actually decided to attempt to date women because I had horrible relationships with men. And then I hurt somebody because I realized pretty deep into the situation that I was not gay. I wasn't solely gay in the sense of wanting to be in a relationship with a woman, but I can acknowledge when a woman is attractive, and I can acknowledge when a woman is sexy, and I think I can feel sexy about a woman. I don't identify as bisexual because I wouldn't want to be in a relationship. I know that for certain. And I desire to procreate with men. So I don't know. I think we've all had misconceptions, and some of it could have come from church, and who knows, right? We'll talk about the history and the stigma in our community. I think we've all had some misconceptions, and we've probably all assumed things about the LGBT community. And then for me, artistry and coming into this world 20 years ago, or 22, 23 years ago, what I realized is that there was a crossing of the two communities. And it became very acceptable. It became easier for me to accept because what I was able to see was I was able to see them in the element that I understood. And whether or not they were talking about love with the man or with the woman and whatever they were, what I recognized was the love, that they could feel the same way about somebody that I feel, you know? And I remember I used to have a book club that was some straight women and some lesbian women. And that for me, that it was done on purpose. And so, of course, our poetry shows, we used to give poetry shows at the Greenwich. And so, of course, they were very mixed crowds. And I remember the first show and seeing straight people being really uncomfortable. And I started to explain what was happening. And I gave this same spiel: artistry and homosexuality, at some point they meet, they cross, and not because they're artists. And we have women in this group who identify as such. And then my aunt, by the third show, she told me, don't say it again. That people can't come in here and realize that. then this is not where they want to be. And they should leave. So yeah, that has been my experience. I'm here to learn this evening, to support our sister, but also to really talk about how to bring the two communities together within our community. Because I don't see, unless somebody is doing something horrible to kids or killing people, there's nobody who should be closed out of our struggle as Black people. And that is where my stance is going to be really strong at this evening, that we have to find a way to get past this, whatever notions we have, and then just really talk that, so for me, that's where I'll probably jump in most, but I'm definitely here to learn, and I don't think all of us are here to learn. I think we actually have opinions that we don't know we have yet until this conversation starts. So y'all ready? Y'all ready?
Let's go.
I'm ready.
Let's go. I got my water.
Okay.
It was not easy for me to share my experience this evening. I'm asking for grace. And I also realize I have a very professional life. I honestly, when I thought about it, and I did a lot of thinking about it in the last week, I just can't see it affecting any of that. So I decided to be as transparent as I was comfortable with this evening. Okay. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So we started off before we came on live, we started talking about all the identities, right? And I have an opinion about all the identities, and then we'll try to name as many of them. I really honestly don't know, but I'd like to know the difference between some of them. And Tia is going to give us as much information as she has, but she has already let us know, like, she's not as well versed, and don't y'all judge her for that. She ain't gotta be.
Heard.
She ain't gotta be. Like, that's
She's not the
thing too. It's
spokesperson
like,
for a
Thank
whole
you,
community.
Dawn. Thank
but
you.
the truth of the matter is that there's no people who identify as one as in a community that are monolithic. And so don't y'all be beating up on my girl. We're not having none of that tonight.
Thank you, sis.
Period. Okay. So we do realize it's like, it started off with LBGT, and then Q was added.
QIA.
Theater. See, so what's I?
I is intersexual.
And that means dictionary. This stuff is on Google somewhere. We're gonna come back to I and A. What does A mean?
A is
asexual. I'm
asexual. I think it's asexual. No, but see.
How could that be part of it though?
No, so that can't be it. Hold on, let me get a.
We're gonna look it up. We should have did this before.
Yeah,
Heck yeah, I was
look up all of the stuff, and that's totally our
Here it
fault.
is.
I am curious.
But see, honestly, this is one of the frustrations.
Go ahead.
This is one of the frustrations, like when it as far as hetero community, like this is one of their frustrations. This is the first thing I hear. They like, now y'all go with this and this and this and that. And I get it. However, like, it's even frustrating enough to put LGBTQ under one umbrella as if all of the rainbow are the same. Like,
And
go ahead.
It's 2 T's. I didn't know that. LGBT, transgender, and transsexual. Then 2 Q's, queer and questioning. Then I is intersex. A is asexual, or another A is ally. And then P is pansexual.
It's almost as if
definitions.
Oh,
I'm looking on Google, but nothing very
Pansexual and queer are pretty much the same.
What's the 2 that are the same? Queer and what else?
Queer and pansexual.
Okay.
Like, there's no sexual preference, and they don't identify with just one sexuality. It's an attraction to all.
So here's where my confusion comes in. Just sometimes, right? Is it that I think at one point I understand that cis came from born with, right? So it's anatomy,
Mm-hmm.
not identity.
It's an identity too. Like you born and identify as a born female or a male with
I
the.
was born anatomically female. I identify as a straight female.
Female.
Okay, so that's cis. Okay, we got it. I think sometimes I don't think people get. I think even people who want to be supportive of the community, I think the frustration comes from like, what does it all mean, right? And are the definitions so widespread that it has to be identified as something? For me, the confusion comes in terms of identity, representation, because we talk about transsexual and transgender people can just dress up. They may be completely straight, but maybe they enjoy. No, is that something different?
Yeah, that's transsexual.
Transsexual.
I thought transsexual was that they actually had the surgery. So I got those confused.
Some don't even have surgery. Some don't even have surgery. Transgender.
They just live as,
identify as.
To me, I'll be honest and say, to me, it just sort of waters the bigger picture down, right? The right is to want to live how you want to live, but it's bigger than that. You want to live how you want to live, identify, and to me, all these words are very different. Live, identify, represent something, like all of those things are very different. So I think the more that's added to it, it's confusing for people who are in the community. I'm not sure how people out that are on the outside looking in, or even who want to be supportive, I don't know how we're supposed to, why it's so horrible when we don't know. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know. We don't know. It ain't agree or disagree. We literally don't know, and we don't fully understand. In turn, has anybody found the definitions for all of them? Because I'm interested in
Okay.
And the
plants are asexual, so I'm really curious about asexual.
I think that the asexual doesn't have an attraction sexually unless it's emotionally attached. But don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I thought asexual meant that it reproduces on its own.
The Webster's Dictionary is that.
We can't do that.
That's what plants
I do got the Webster's Dictionary right now for the
right?
acronyms.
Plants reproduce on their own. They create their own seed. They, from the same plant. So Webster's does have a very technical definition. That's why I was interested in how it translates to humans. Is it an identity or reflection or a particular act?
Because what I meant you didn't want to have sex. Because I thought that's what it was. I can't see this little bitty.
Well, as far as, do you want me to read the acronyms? Because I got it on my screen.
Yes, for asexual.
Oh no, I got the acronyms. I can look that up.
We went through the acronyms.
We went through that.
Well, I thought y'all was
for definitions.
The asexual.
I'm gonna continue to look for the information. And then if I find it, I'll post it in the comments under the section. I know I can't get on to Google and look. And if you guys find it along the way.
Asexual is the lack of sexual attraction to others or low interest in sexual activity. So this is what I was gonna say earlier. It almost feels like the LGBT community, and continuing on, it feels like anyone who disinjects from the established idea of sexual orientation. The more and more I read about it, that's the feeling I get. Anybody that is opposed to the general established idea of sexuality and relationships.
But does asexual have anything to do with LGBTQ as a whole, right? So I think what has happened, I think that the community has decided that they will engulf, they will engulf anybody who has, like you said, a different perspective, or of how they behave and identify, and because asexual could be with somebody who is neither gay, they're neither gay nor straight.
You know
Right?
what? This is why I don't like the whole rainbow thing. I don't even like labels. Some people would label me as a stud. I used to claim that. But as I grow and evolve and become, you know what I'm saying, get to know myself more, and that's even with anybody within the rainbow community. And I think this is why we continuously, have more and more of these labels, because people are evolving and getting to know themselves more. And then here comes another label, and it's like, why do we even have to do this? Why can't we just normalize being whoever we are? I don't even like to identify, just being purely female, because I feel like I'm in tune with my masculinity as well. So me, I would be more so non-binary, because you know what I'm saying, on a different level, I have a balance of masculine and feminine, like male and female. I have that state of mind of a male and a female. So there's, like this human body, we are spirits for one, and then we come into this human body and we have to get to know this body again. And so that's a whole different story. But I honestly, the rainbow thing drives me crazy, because everybody puts it all, or even we, the community, puts us all in this umbrella, and it separates us, and we're not separate amongst each other. We're not, because even heterosexual have different thoughts and feelings about whatever the case may be. And
Absolutely.
and they, it causes you to deny yourself, because oh my goodness, if I have this thought or this feeling, that means I'm over here and I'm not there. So it causes a lot of division and confusion, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a human experience.
It's T. I could not. I think that's where I was trying to get to, and I couldn't get the words. I could not agree with you more. I think that eventually all of that kind of has to dissolve, because what happens is, I see that there are two different asks happening here, right? There is, we want to be all of these titles and be separate, and have you recognize all these things. Oh, but we also want to be extremely included. And so you have two different asks happening. And it's like, first of all, why should you ask, right? Because like you said, as a heterosexual, in heterosexual, and I don't know, I have to say the heterosexual community, that just sounds insane to me. But in that population, right, we all have different tastes. This is a homosexuality conversation. So sexual things are going to be discussed. If you have little ones, I would suggest they probably shouldn't be near the computer at this particular moment. Back to even the differences in heterosexual. There are some women who masturbate. There are some women who don't. Some women feel like if you do it, then you must, get you a man. You must be hard up. You only do it. Some women do it with a man. Hello. No. I'm saying, like, for real. Some, you have people that's like, ew, porn, and some people that's like, yeah, porn. You know what I mean? And so even in our own circles, I think it's so widespread. I just think the letters eventually should just dissolve. And the only person who should care or need it or need to know is a person that you're trying to get up on. Like, now, in terms of politics, that's something different, right? Those are two different fights. But in terms of just identity, to me, if there's a need to be included in a larger society, and eventually I think the letters have to dissolve themselves and just be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were standing in a crowd of people, who the hell would know? Unless you told them. Who the hell would care? I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, and I get that, and I totally agree with that. The only thing, like, now I think LGBT most get a break now, because there's this attack on transgender. And it's like being killed, you know what I'm saying, because of who they are. And I found myself, if I like, I'm one hair string away from being identified as transgender, just because I just never, wanted to go that far. I don't want to have to go through all of that just to prove like this is how I feel, this is who I feel like I am. So you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to go through all of that, but like I was saying, like there's now the attack, like LGBT, there's relief now, because like relief and also concern and feeling sorry for our transgender brothers and sisters, and that's where like even if we get rid of the rainbow and all of these identities, will our transgender brothers and sisters have the respect and feel safe outside amongst all of us, as if us. You know what I'm saying? Like this is we're all humans. We all have hearts, and we all have love in our hearts and life. Like, why is that? Like,
why you all think that's happening? I don't want to. I really want to talk about the what is happening with transgenders, and I want to be very specific that Black transgender females. So I mean those who are living as females, right? They are being killed. Violence is occurring, right? It does seem that, I don't know if it's happening the other way, but I do know for certain, and you just do a Google search on transgender murders.
wow.
It's a lot of them. And we are completely disconnected in the community from that. Unless you are part of the LGBT community, you don't even know that it's happening. I think we should be as concerned about it as we would be if people were, about our daughters being snatched for trafficking. I think we should be just as concerned. I think you might be shocked. I looked it up earlier this week because I was just really curious and preparing myself for this. Y'all, it's a lot. And no matter what, is they're being murdered. Like, remove everything else. There's somebody that looks like us is being murdered by somebody like us simply because of the way they look. We should know what that feels like.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mom.
I think it's just the fear. It's the fear that somebody who is transgender will not reveal that their previous gender and will enter into a relationship or whatever, and that somebody will be fooled. So I think it's a fear and it's a disgust in that way, that especially I think it's more for men, like, men feeling like I might get with this woman and there's been a sex change. Then what does that make me? Or does that make me?
What the fear is, what it makes them.
Yes. Yes. Does that make me gay? Does that make me there's some attraction to a man some kind of way, even though this person was looking like a woman? And I think it's just, it's horrible. Even in the criminal system, to see how they're treated. We don't have separation. We don't have a room to say, okay, if you're transgender, you being here by yourself, to keep the safety there. But at the same time, you hear different police say, well, or correction officers, you don't want to take them away from the general population, because then that's like you're targeting them too. So what do?
Teach men. Okay, so I have a solution for that, right? Because this goes for any man who feels like he can be a predator or violent against, whether it's a transgender woman or a heterosexual woman. Just teach them how to not be violent towards women. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, stop it. It's not their problem. It's not their problem. It is truly your problem. How does that make you something different? In defense, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but let me be honest. When I was in Chicago, I lived in Chicago for 3 years, and at the time, I was very involved in the community, because they used to do poetry at a drag show. right? Which I thought it was cool. I'm gonna be honest. I thought the drag shows are real cool. I really did. Like, it's weird. I had really strange feelings kind of being in the mix at first because I remember one of them like did an Erica Badu song and I was like, no, you can do Diana Ross, but you can't do Erica. You know what I mean? And no, that's ignorant and it's stupid as hell. But I was like 23, so just bear with me on that, right? I felt like they couldn't have Erica, right? And that's stupid. But I'm being honest as I can be.
honest.
I think that it I used to go one of the guys who and he lived every day as a woman. He hadn't had a sex change or anything like that, but he was considered that's transgender, right? I don't want to say it wrong. He lived every day as a transsexual. He was planning on having the surgery or whatever, but at this moment, at that time he hadn't. When we would be out in the South Side of Chicago, though, like on our way to the shows, he really would be super aggressive with dudes. And it was scary for me. I gotta be honest. We were on the South Side of Chicago. I don't know if y'all know nothing about the South Side of Chicago, but I lived on 43rd and King Drive. Just take a trip. That's all I can tell you. In the middle.
Or not.
Yeah, in the
Can
middle.
I just drive by, no pun intended.
Huh?
Can I just drive by, no pun intended?
Oh my God.
I mean, seriously, like my second night there was gunshots in the alley. Like it was a lot going on. I mean, it was a heavy gang area, and you know, he like jumping in the cars and he letting them believe he was a. I was scared to death. I was like, oh God, somebody gonna kill us. Somebody gonna kill us. They gonna reach to the wrong place and we gonna die out here, you know? But I don't know that that's happening anymore. I do know, having been in that scene, that there was trickery. There was trickery, and that's not cool. That's dangerous.
And
But if people are now killing transgender because of that reason, I don't know that that's happening anymore. I think people are trying to hold on to that and say, well, because he might try to fool me. I don't know.
No, what it really is now, because we see what that's done in the past. People lying about their identity. And I ain't gonna say, I can't speak for everybody because some probably still do that. You know what I'm saying? But from the conversations that I've jumped into with transgender communities, especially Black trans women conversations, now it's because cis men who are creeping with the trans woman and don't want nobody to find out. And when they find out, when somebody finds out something, they scared. So that's what they do. Or somebody just really hates trans women and just have a thing, and that's what they gonna do. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they do. I'm sorry, but that's mainly what it is now, because undercover brothers, or you know what I'm saying, not want to find out. Like, it's even been cops who have harassed trans women and done sexual favors with trans women, you know what I'm saying, and don't want nobody to find out.
They're caught at the downtown at the downtown library, but we're gonna leave that alone. Look it up. Look it up. That's all I'm gonna say. Ain't nothing else to say about that. I might have too much inside information, but there you go with that. So you've been kind of quiet.
Yeah, because this went different directions. I kind of had hey Bree. I kind of had a comment on one of them, but I've been slow to answer because the answers that came to my mind, I had to check for myself. Is that really how I feel? Or am I repeating what others say? Again, I'm learning how to unlearn certain things. I will say this to an earlier comment that I did remember. When Don, you said that homosexual and arts collide. If you think about art in general, that's where people talk the truth anyway. Mm-hmm. So what's not Americanized or the American view, you're going to get in the art scene anyway. And when you had said about, when T said about on your comment dissolving the acronyms and just be, That's really what it ends up about from an individual standpoint and a collective standpoint to a community standpoint to a whole world standpoint. Because musicians have that same problem too. It's like, let me label this new metal. Let me label this chill hop. Let me label this acid jazz. Why can't it just be music? Why can't I just be? Because not one person is exactly what they think they are. And I think each of us as artists can agree. If we were to break down our influences as artists, they range from a myriad of things that you wouldn't think would be in that umbrella. So, and to comment on the killing of the transgender, death is death. And if you got a problem with somebody, unless they have done something to you, there's no point of it. I definitely will concur that was definitely happening where there was some sneak and trickery happening. And my first thought when I heard that was like, maybe it's just a repeat of what the youngins had seen early on, where they teach their youngins about that. And it just manifests into automatically, let me just do it just to save face. Because really, nobody grows up, everybody has instinctively a survival mode and a want to be violent just as much as they have a need to be peaceful. Just as much as anybody has the capability of love, they also have the ability to be compatible with being hateful. What is being influenced by them defines that direction that they go. So I look at it as America is always looking for somebody to be either a slave or to hate on. Just like when Black people got a break in September 11th, ironically, as we're talking about this, Muslims got a whole lot of heat. Arabs got a whole lot of heat. So I feel it's the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. Where do you all think the stigma in our community comes from? Is it specific to homosexuality, or is it? I won't, because I'm giving away. I'm leading, and I don't want to lead. Where do you all think that it comes from, in your opinions?
In my experience, I would say a lot of what was taught in the church, and it goes to what we were talking about, mental health, of the idea of we already have enough people talking bad about us. We don't need any more reason to talk bad about us. So I feel like that mentality is, even if they do it behind closed doors, undercover brothers, as T said, yeah, I don't want that shame of being known. And if you think about just us in general, we come from very prideful families, but that pride really masquerades all the stuff that we don't talk about. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about we have these feelings. We don't talk about, we really have questions about stuff, but we was told not to answer. So I think it stems from the idea of homosexuality looked at as an abomination, the highest crime against God. So that stigma from the church, at least I feel like, is a shame if you even think so much about going the other way. And then being suppressed sexually wise, that adds to the problem as a whole. Just look at the sexual suppression in the Catholic Church. You're basically told you're forced to be celibate for a higher cause.
Well, they make a choice too. It's not a forcing. They, monks and nuns really believe. So priests. Okay, so just really quick, priests don't have to be celibate, right? Monks are celibate, right? And monks can be priests. I'm not saying that's not the case, but that is not really required necessarily of Catholic priests. They would probably prefer you to believe that so they can kind of excuse what's happening in the Catholic Church in terms of what they do to little boys, but that's not true. It's not true. Monks and nuns were the ones who lived in the convents, right? Not the priests. So just to be, clear about that. I know priests who are married. So, yeah, there's that. I agree. I think it all stems from the church, from the Black church, which is interesting to me because all of my choir directors were gay. Let's just be clear. Like it's very interesting. It's very interesting. No, and it's at the time it was just gay. So that's what they weren't out in terms of bringing their boyfriends to church, right? But there was no question. No one questioned whether it was whether it was, we just didn't visually see the manifestation of it, but come on, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to me. And then in church in general, I think I kind of decided that the church was insane. Their philosophies were slightly insane. I left church at 16 years old. I had a mom who said, "Go figure it out," and I'm grateful and blessed. Truly blessed for that, because I gained a higher relationship with a higher being, not being in church. Like, it developed tenfold, and it wouldn't have done that necessarily in church. So it's interesting to me because you're right. There is sort of this weird dichotomy happening in the church that's like, and not to even mention all the ministers who mess with little girls. I mean, it's a lot going on in the church.
A lot.
I at the church like, wait a minute. How you still teach? And it's interesting that they reference that as the highest, what you call it, sin against God, right?
It's suicide, I think. According to the church, I think it's suicide.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's suicide, but it's very interesting that it would even be like people always talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. I was like, y'all do realize that Sodom and Gomorrah really didn't have anything to do with homosexuality. What was happening was bestiality, right? Right. What they would have considered perverse sex. So at the time it would have been anal. Right. And people assume that because anal sex was happening, that it also meant that men were doing it. It doesn't, if you read, go ahead, just find the chapters in the book and read it. There's nothing that specifically references homosexuality in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, but they were also worshiping false idols. Mm-hmm. They were also valuing money over God and religion. So it was a lot going on in Sodom.
Eating forbidden meat and
they would, first of all, we living in Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's just be clear. They ain't got nothing to do with who's sleeping with who. That's for real. The world is imploding on this stuff. Y'all want to act like it's not happening because we've seen smaller civilizations happen, and now we're looking at a global civilization. We don't think that shit is happening. It's happening. But okay, we ain't going there. It's interesting, that the Black church, or any church, because it's not just the Black church, Catholics do it, Muslims do it, and you can't tell me that there are no Muslims in any country where traditional Islam is being practiced. Ain't never been no gay people ever.
Oh yeah,
they might not have been able to tell nobody, but never.
Right.
That's just. I also think for us that it comes from, for Black men specifically, the stigma is sometimes attached to slavery and what we know that they did to Black men to break Black men. And so I think it is this where we talk about a hyper masculinity, and I don't think masculinity is toxic. So I never use toxic in terms of masculinity, because I know some toxic females too. So I try to avoid toxic. You might just be a toxic damn person, but I do think there is a hyper masculinity, and hyper just means sort of an overexertion of being a man. And I think in the face of homosexuality, I think Black men are hyper masculine because it's like, I'm a man. But quite frankly, I know some men who represent or who behave masculine and are gay. So I think what you said in the beginning, T, that masculinity and femininity are the surface part of sexuality. They really don't have a lot to do with sexuality as a whole. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like spirituality is not in the gonads. And this is something
What's made me spit my water out.
My bad. My bad.
Go ahead.
Energy has nothing to do with your anatomy and stuff like that. Like we, granted, there's so much history in homosexuality. There's history in everything. And sometimes we lose focus on the now because we so stuck on what happened then. It's like, so what are we doing right now? Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? We can always go back because, like, honestly, even in like tribal, before there was any religion, there were tribes, and some of these ancient tribes, they reverend two-spirited beings, which would be, beings who identified with the feminine and masculine. So it's well beyond sexuality and identity. It's for some tribes and belief systems, it's a reverence. It's like an honor to be able to tap into and be balanced with the masculine and feminine as one. Like it's so deep. Like when you think about the physical body and the spiritual body, we are all physical and spiritual. And I don't know if people believe in reincarnation and stuff like that, but when we come, like, especially people who have identified themselves as the opposite sex since they were children, like, have always felt like, this is who I am, I cannot change this. Just like like a lot of us are like, just like you can't change the fact that you're Black, a lot of us feel like, I can't change the fact that this is who I am. They literally know within the depths of their soul that I am a man, I am a woman. And maybe that's from a past lifetime, you know what I'm saying, or a reincarnation, because beyond religion, we all have a purpose here on this earth. And some come back to fulfill that purpose. We are light beings, you know what I'm saying? So it's well beyond the physical. We are spirit beings having human experiences, having physical experiences. And to deny somebody for who they honestly know that they are, it's a knowing that they are, is so disrespectful, especially coming from our community. Like, and a lot of guys, feel like, oh no, procreation, how can we have children? Little do they know, it's systems out there who don't want us to have children, and thinking that homosexuality is going to stop that. You know how many of us are having kids out here?
I was gonna say, let's
Like,
be clear, y'all. I know y'all just procreation, y'all. I work for Head Start. There is no shortage of people making babies. Okay, I know, I get it. This is why this conversation is so important. It really is. I don't have very many parents who don't have at least 3 kids on our roster. There's no shortage of men. It's not happening. I know. Whatever y'all choose, it's not happening. It's just not. Yeah. So I'm sorry, T. Go ahead, because I just
go ahead. I'm good.
The AK. I mean, yeah. So yeah, that's not happening. But go ahead, Mo. You look like you had something that you wanted to.
No, I'm good.
It's not happening, and I think we're making all this up. Because I just don't think that we are ready to deal with it. Honestly, I don't know why it's any of your business. You can have, I guess, if you choose to have a moral standing against something, feel free to have a moral standing. And to be honest, I struggle with the thought of 2 men being together. I struggle with it. I don't want to think about it too heavy, I do struggle with that. I'm trying to figure out why I struggle with that. I don't know what it is. I think the world is more accepting of 2 feminine women being together. I think they like the visual, I think it changes as soon as one of the women is too masculine. Then it gets different, I will attest to the fact that I know people think people aren't born that way. People choose to be that way, or if they are born that way, it's a mental illness. Guys, I grew up with a cousin, and all of us by 5 years old knew he was a girl. Everybody, all of us, we all were stair steps, 4, 5, 6, 7. And at 4 or 5, I recognized, and I didn't have any, I couldn't articulate it, I didn't have any words for it. But at 4 or 5, he played Barbie dolls, he jumped rope. He was my girl cousin. He looked like a boy, but and he didn't, nothing happened to him. He wasn't molested. It's interesting to me when people say, well, kids, gay kids, something must have happened to them. What does that even mean? So you all honestly think the heterosexual people can't make a gay child? It's because that's what it sounds like is being said. I don't, I'm confused. I'm just confused by that. So anyway.
My attraction to females, that was 4 years old. That was before the molestation. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that that has nothing to do with it.
Now, do you think that there are people who are particularly females? I'm going to, because men don't play. I don't think men play one way, either they in or they hiding. I'm not talking about the ones who are hiding. I'm talking, but do you think in terms of media and what is acceptable to see, do you think that there are women who are kind of playing into lesbianism, but they really aren't?
Oh,
on that.
Oh, it's the new trend, like trendy.
It's trendy.
Oh my God, that's just,
if there's a dollar to be made anywhere, they're gonna do it.
Even without the dollars, I done been to bars where women who are not gay, I know for certain that they are not, they are clearly not, but for the attraction of some man who is watching, they will pretend with their girlfriends, and they'll go far. It won't be a little bit. Y'all done seen it. I ain't the only person in someplace and have seen it. I'm the only one. Mo, you looking like I ain't never seen that shit before.
No, I haven't seen that, but I do know.
Really? You've never seen like girls kissing in the club and dancing with each other and smacking each other's booties? Yep. Seen that ever?
Scandalous.
I have, but I never really thought of it as just pretending like they were gay. I just,
I mean, I think the imagery of it, right? Yes. I think they think it's attractive to men, and it is attractive to men. Some man is somewhere egging it on.
We got comments too on the live.
Okay, go ahead, Soul, and T, then give us some of our comments.
Our answer is just it's the culture. It's just more attractive. It's just the culture too. It's almost like, if I can explain it, like you have excuse this analogy, this is the only thing I can come up, so don't get offended. It's like adding 2 half cups together with a female, but it's 2 full cups with a guy, 2 guys. It's something about it, the imagery. It's just like you have adding 2 soft. I ain't go that direction. So I think for that, it is attractive, especially for a guy, and definitely they do play on that. Like, it ain't gotta just be for money. It could be just for other less noble means. So I
don't think the women in the club, let me just tell y'all something, brothers. I know y'all be excited, but they ain't really about that life. Oh, they ain't really bad.
It's no different. It's no different than if you in a club with a woman.
Yeah, and you know what a pillow princess is.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Pillow princess.
They ain't really about that life. And let me just, you got to be in the spot to be in the spot. That's all I gotta say. Go ahead. So
to me, it's no different if I'm in the club and a girl is twerking all types of stuff on me, and you outside, you all happy, you see her like, what's cracking? And they switch up, be like, I'm not that kind of girl.
Be like 5 minutes ago you was though, but okay, that's yeah. So, I'm telling y'all, 90% of them ain't about that life. Y'all don't get too excited. Just question.
I do have a question. So sometimes I feel like, and I hate to say this in a negative way, but you hear people say they believe that a gay agenda is being pushed.
That was the
It is
next
being
question.
pushed upon us. I remember some years ago, because like I said, I was celibate for a long time. And I remember during that time going to a counselor and telling her like I felt really convicted. I felt like I needed to be married, and I did, because I was never taught that, right? I was never taught like be married, be in a relationship before you have sex. That wasn't really the conversation that I had growing up. And when I found that for myself, I was turned off by somebody, and I was living with it, and we did not have sex for a long time. And the counselor said, I believe you're gay. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not the case. And she was like, how do you know if you've never tried? And it's those type of comments that's like, there is some push. There's push, you know, whether it's in the high schools, there's push in different areas. And I understand there needs to be an area where you can express yourself. And if that's what you feel, you need to feel accepted. And you need to have that place and space to be able to express yourself. But when it's being taught, like, you got to at least try it before you know it. Does anybody see anything? Anybody else see something wrong with that? Yeah.
Here's why I think something's wrong with it. Because if we accept that there are people who are born with feelings that they eventually either will express and gravitate to, then it's not fair to say that you got to try to see if it's true, right? I think that's there's some and so I think what happens with this agenda is that in the push to be recognized, it sort of became you probably gay too kind of verbiage, and it was kind of like, well, no, but wait, hold on, let me check. No, you know, kind of like it had you questioning your own
Yes.
self. So, you know, I think when we talk about agenda, I think what happens is agenda is something that's very systemic, right? There's something systematic about it. And there's something systematic happening here as much as individuals who are just, I think, extreme. And extremes, I think, happen they're in any community that we could name across the board. So what I would like to know is like how to push back on those individuals, because I know people will say, but on TV we see so many Black gay boys. I will say that it's far more than I can ever remember growing up. But where I struggle is it just because that there's an acceptance, there is an openness and allowance of it now? Did it always exist and we didn't know? Because there was nothing visible. There was no credence given to it. In fact, it was really denounced, strongly denounced.
Yeah.
So maybe it was always there, we didn't know, but we live in a world of show it all. Like, put it on the screen, whatever it is, everybody can see it. And I think it's overwhelming for those of us who grew up in more conservative times.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I'm on the fence about the agenda. I can see, let me say this, I can understand why people feel that way. I can understand. I think it would be unfair to say, I'm just talking about. You know, but then I think that there are people who get extreme about it. There was not too long ago a meme, or not a meme, but someone took a picture of a baby doll box, and on the back of the box there was a Black boy holding the baby doll. And somebody who I unfriended since, but I had a lot of respect for, but this situation made me unfriend them, because lately it's easy for me just to be like, you know what? I don't want that type of energy in my life. And it ain't just with this particular thing. But she was saying, here we go. She's what I'm talking about, the agenda. And I was like, well, why can't we just normalize Black boys being okay with their babies? Like when I first saw it, I didn't immediately think like, old age. How is holding the baby gender of any sort? I actually was so happy to see the little black boy holding the baby. I was like, yeah, yes.
Gonna be a good daddy.
In my mind didn't go there immediately, but the comments, oh God, it was rough. It was truly, truly rough. I don't know if any of you all saw that, but did you all see that? How would you feel if you saw that on the back of a box? What would be your just honest? You can give it your first thought.
I would jump to that as a first thought, not in a negative way, but what I don't like to see, the Black family unit is never represented. So we haven't figured out a way to represent mom, dad, and the child. So now we want to have the boy with the child. And I don't know.
I think that's fair. I honestly think that's fair. I think we're watching it happening a lot. I think there's so many commercials with mixed families, and I don't have a problem with mixed families. I'm just saying, y'all do know there's Black people that's married with kids. Like, yeah, I'm not saying any of that.
Yeah.
Anywhere though, it's a little frightening. Like, I had to fight for a flyer at my job. Like, wait, man, we're gonna have one whole Black family on here. We're not gonna just have mom with her baby, and over here the Hispanic mama got all her kids and the daddy and the grandmama and the cousins. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna have one representation of a Black family unit, you know, and we can have all the other representations. We can have 2 women with their child. We can have 2 men with we can have all of that, but it's like
all of that
precedence. I agree. Everything else is taking precedence. Just, it's almost as if now it's taboo to just be a cis hetero couple.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels hurtful to some extent.
Yeah.
And it's going to lead us right into this activism thing, but go ahead, because I know people have other stuff to say about the feminization of our Black boys, or the agenda that people believe is existing. What do you all think? So, T.
Did you want me to read the comments first?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let's see. Deandra, she says, Don, I love you. Nice talk. Peace, brother man.
That's my homeboy, actually, from school, from elementary school. I've been knowing him since like kindergarten, but yeah.
And Arthur Anderson, he says, true statement, but the crazy part is God said sin is sin. And he also says men are more accepting of 2 feminine women. So that was earlier in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So about the agenda, how do you have so Mo, that was a really good, I agree. I think we've got to figure out how to represent everything that our community is, everything.
Yes.
You know, and doesn't have to exclude one thing too. It's almost like one light doesn't have to be dulled for the other light to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I agree. T, so leave comments. And
I think the more we talk about this, I feel like the agenda is the same way as I felt about Illuminati back in the day, when the big talk was about Illuminati. It's not saying that it doesn't happen, but we're looking in the wrong spaces. So when I first heard you talk about the baby boy on the box, my immediate thought was agenda, because especially we're going to talk about in a future podcast, Willie Lynch, I always felt that for a very long time. And I always pick and almost look for from personal experience and just seeing my people around me, the effects of what is really happening. Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? So I feel like when we see things like that, and especially when you say we're a very conservative time, going back to my metaphor of the bottle, when you oppress somebody so much, you go right, they're just gonna go left. So when we see images like that, when we're so used to being established, this is masculine, this is feminine, when you blur the lines or tiptoe any kind of way, or even go in the extremes, there's no dialogue of why this is just put in front of our faces. And when it comes to media, they don't really, I feel like it is ultimately about the dial, but there's also that agenda of division, always having us bigger at one another instead of figuring
That's
out
what I see the
what,
bigger agenda being.
yeah, instead of
Mhm.
realizing we all in the same shithole, and they're just laughing, getting our dollars out. So, and especially as a Black man, I've definitely experienced times where my masculinity has been questioned, from the point where family and friends questioned if I was gay, and I would never get a Black woman, or I would never be this, or I'd never be that. And a lot of these stigmas that I experience, it
Mhm.
builds this psyche in your mind of, you get sensitive to any and everything. If at least for me, it was an inkling of rebelling against anything. So when I would see these images, even though I don't say it at the time, I was like, what is this actually teaching me? What is this building if I see this over and over and over and over and over again? And the greatest thing I feel like is the biggest target when it comes to us is to break down the family dynamic. If we don't see um a reinforcement of what we're taught is supposed to be in America, of being American or a man, when you're seeing all these images of what you're the opposite of that, it does do something to you. And I feel like that's the agenda, to make us more, not just fight each other, but fighting with ourselves, when we're trying to just have a good day and just be human. So this is the same approach of, like, when we celebrate, oh, he graduated high school, big deal. But because that's the only win we get, it's like, yeah, it's a big deal to us.
When we get into Willie Lynch, and I want to give T a chance to chime in on this part, but when we get into Willie Lynch, and that is in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks. I gotta look at the dates. I'll post them. This is the last Sunday of the month. When we get into that, I think that we have to make sure that we aren't just talking about it from a what was done to us, and what complicity we have in it. And here's what I mean by that. If we can articulate, you sat here, you beautifully articulated that you recognize that there is an agenda to keep us separate, then why isn't our agenda to be united? See, we got to be real careful when we talk about those kinds of things, right? Because if we continue to just say, done, 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 it was beat us, and we literally can recognize what was done to us and what created the separation, and we should also be strong enough to negate the separation. And if we are not, then we are complicit. And that's where this Willie Lynch thing is going to come in, y'all. That's going to be a deep conversation. I'm excited to talk about that, but we don't want to get there. So go ahead, T. I think you were going to jump in and talk about this agenda. Does it exist?
Yeah. I believe personally there are a lot of agendas. There's this separation amongst the Black community, and then there's the separation against humanity altogether. You know what I'm saying? And then there's this new agenda where there's this separation between what is it? Transhuman and human, where they're combining, tech, electronics and technology, and blend it, merge it with the human. So it's all kind of agendas going on, to where there's literally an agenda to where humans altogether won't. Their plan is for all humans not to be able to reproduce. You know what I'm saying? So it's so much bigger now than just race. But how can we even see that if we still swimming around circles in this pool of our own community, like, you know what I'm saying? We got to come to something. Otherwise, like, just like you were saying, like with the whole separation thing. And I had a point and I totally forgot what I was saying. I know it had a lot to do with the agenda. Naturally seeing, like, as soon as you see the baby and the black boy, you automatically gonna be like, what is y'all on, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? And naturally, because we're not used to seeing something like that, and because there really are agendas out there, that's why I feel like it's so important for us to explore within ourselves. I don't mean sexually. This is not sexual. This is coming to know who we really are. And the deeper that we know ourselves individually, the more we can identify with the people around us, the more we can find that interconnection. Like me looking at you, I see myself in you. You know what I'm saying? I see the divinity in you because I see the divinity in me. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that a lot of people don't want either, because the more that you keep people separate, the more they're easier to control. So you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's up to all of us to take that deep journey within ourselves, so that no matter, because there's a lot of spell casting as well, a lot of spell casting all over the globe, and it's a lot of information that our minds and our bodies and spirits receive, and some of it is confusing. Like, our brains don't know how to process it, so it's a lot of invisible spiritual activity going on too, because this is a spiritual war. And so that's why it's so important to take that journey within. That way, no matter what somebody tries to manipulate our minds and our emotions with, we're so comfortable and so confident in who we are, the I am, that they can't phase us, they can't touch us, because we, you know what I'm saying, we protected in that I am. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I want to say with that one.
Yeah, I think I'll end the agenda thing because I think we are doing really well, and I know our brother has to get off at 9, so I want to try to, get maybe the next 15 minutes, wrap the thing up. But I will say this about agenda. I think it's very interesting when we talk about agenda, because what we're talking about is what the media shows us, right? And what television shows us. And there's no one with even a 6th grade education who doesn't know that my grandmother back in the day years ago used to call it the one-eyed devil. So the fact that media and television has always been about on some bullshit is not even new.
Just that.
So the question is, and again, this is where we are complicit. Why are we looking at that to tell us the story? And here is where we feed the agenda. While we kind of talk about agenda, we know who created it, but we feed it. We give it a lot of life. Here's where we feed it. We were so quick to be angry about Kamala and her husband, black and white, and she can't have no black. But we just had a whole black president, a whole black family, a whole black beautiful family 8 years ago. You know what I mean? It's no, we didn't, there was no lack of that on television. You know what I mean? We just chose to focus on that. We were so proud of Will and Jada. They survived all these years as a black love couple. And then the moment the shit went down, we couldn't wait to tear them down. Oh my God, we gave Jada the blues. Never mind that Will done cheated somewhere along. We gave him the blues. We love basketball, hip hop. I don't even know the name of the show, so y'all know I don't watch the shit. Ain't nothing about that Beautiful and Black. Ain't nothing about those shows, Beautiful and Black, but we love them. So are we feeding the agenda? We just don't want them to televise the agenda. That's what we mad about. We don't want them to televise the agenda, but we're giving a lot of credence to the agenda. So in the midst of the agenda, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's all I'm saying. I can't wait to do Willie Lynch. I don't think y'all ready for Willie Lynch, but I cannot wait, because that is my twist on it. It was horrible, but the prescription worked. What's up?
And that goes to my earlier point about
being prideful and hiding what you actually do instead of owning your own shit. Everybody wants to look all squeaky clean as TV ready, but nobody's always TV ready.
Mhm, mhm. Indeed. So the last part of this, and I think we did so good tonight, guys. I'm really proud of us. In terms of time. Um, the last thing I really
Surprising.
want to talk about is activism and being Black, and an activist, and why have we decided to squeeze the LGBTQ community out of the fight for racial equality and justice? Um, and I don't know, maybe it's not something that you all see. Maybe that's not happening at all. Um, but do you think that is happening? And if you think it's happening, why? Because we've decided to some extent that their fight is their fight, but their fight isn't our fight. It ain't the same fight. And they do have a different fight from us, but they also have a very similar fight. And I got some opinions about why. Because let me say this, I think both sides of the coin, I think there's justification for both sides of the coin. I think I can understand why people feel the way we do. The point of this is to try to get past those misunderstandings to a greater sense of unity by the end, right? So go ahead. What do you all think about racial equality and justice? And is the LGBT community, you know what I'm trying to say? Are they with us, not with us? Do we want them with us? Do we not want them with us? Jump in.
That
I
makes
think,
sense. Go
oh,
ahead. I'm sorry.
I think they're definitely with us. But one thing I can say from a corporate end and sitting in on some diversity and inclusion type of, I won't say the specific programs, but different programs. What I've had to say verbally is listen, don't think because you have found a spot for LGBTQ and you are bringing in more from that community that you are diverse, because that is not true. I still do not see representation strictly for Black women, Black men. I feel like there's more. It's like, oh, well, let's see if we can find somebody, a homosexual Black
And kill four
woman.
birds with one stone. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're trying to do it all. And then it's like, okay, but where's the spot for, then you're excluding in in a whole nother way. You have to be able to say, okay, because I'm a straight woman and I'm still able to feel that. You gotta meet that need of diversity with LGBTQ and without that population. And that's where I think there's kind of some headbutting there, because there's a separation, because it's almost like, okay, we're fighting too, but because we've not fought hard enough for our rights and a lot of things and representation, it just feels like sometimes it's just being overshadowed, and then the fight is even harder now.
T, you were trying to speak at the same time, so I want to give you so you don't lose your thought.
Yeah, I really don't understand like why, and maybe that's an agenda too, like separating the LGBTQ with the hetero, like we all are one. Why is it so hard? It doesn't even make sense to me to be like, yeah, we fighting for Black rights, not they rights, not theirs, not them Black rights. I'm talking about the regular rights. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what does that even mean? Like,
Okay.
and it's so crazy how it's we struggling together. So why are we fighting each other? And this was an agenda too. They've thrown it like with the spell casting and stuff like that, the manipulation. I feel like this is a part of that too. You know what I'm saying? Like separating us from, you know what I'm saying, the LGBTQ and hetero families and stuff like this. Like what it would be, we would be nothing to be played with if we could find that medium to
Mhm.
where, you know what I'm saying, like dang, what they talking about. We see what y'all own, and that's not working anymore. It used to work, but we on another level. We're ascending now. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, we finding that balance, and everybody, of course, is not going to agree with that, which is still like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what do we even do about that? It's so, it seems like it could be so simple, but just because there's so many layers to it, you know what I'm saying, to different people's belief system, and being so used to the norm, man, woman, you know what I'm saying? This is how we were raised. So this is what we used to, but in today's society, we're not there anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's a different type of situation going on right now. Regardless of how things used to be, this is a whole new world that we coming into. And if we want to stay alive and be able to stay alive long enough to procreate and stand up for each other's rights, like, we gonna have to find some kind of way to shake hands with each other, to find some kind of medium. Otherwise, we're gonna die together. It's like we are all one ocean, all together. We a million drops in one ocean. If we separating ourselves and dividing ourselves, we still hurting. The hetero Black community or whatever is still going to hurt because we still killing a part of us. We are all connected, and that's a part that we don't want to accept. But every living being on this earth is connected to each other. Yes, the straight man who hates, or even the straight woman who hates LGBTQ is connected to them. Whether you want to accept it or not, we're all connected, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
So I will say this. I will say I actually got some opinions. And so I want to share some opinions that were shared with me in regard to this particular. First, let's be clear that Black activists, there've always been homosexual Black activists in our community. James Baldwin, Arthur Ashe, you could name out or I was just going to say Althea Gibson, but that's not true. Even a very strong display of alternative, right? What was her name? Ma Rainey, Moms Mabley. And at the time, people to some extent didn't know, right? They knew, but they didn't know. It wasn't like, I'm gay first, then I'm an activist. There was no announcement of it. And the country was different. We believe it was different. It's pretty much the same. But okay, let's just say in the 60s and the 50s, it was different. And we felt like the struggle was bigger, and there was more of a sense of whoever is down to get the work done, we don't care if you green, come up in here and get the work done, right? So that's one thing. You know, let's not be confused that homosexuality is have always been activists as well, right? Okay. What somebody did say to me is that we never see the LGBTQ community in the midst of racial activity.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say this, they don't know that, right? Because we don't know. The person next to us, we don't know, right? I think what they're saying is that they don't see people who they can visibly say they're gay. So that would be a transgender person. That would be somebody maybe who identifies as some, what they would call a butch woman. I think if they don't see that, they have no idea who the person at the rally standing next to them is, right? But that is a belief that when it comes to their fight, you know, but we never see them in fights that just have to have nothing to do with homosexuality, just have to do with the Black community. Well, I ventured back, I kind of pushed back and said, how would you know? They got a stamp on their forehead? a big H on their chest, a big red H, not the A, the letter A. I mean, how would you know? So, but these are the perceptions, right? And then my other question back to them was, well, have you ever been to something that was just for them? That was sort of my question back, right? If the argument was that we never see them on this side. So I don't know. I mean, I think what's happening is that there are these like sort of wide ranging misconceptions of things that really aren't happening or are happening, and we just choose not to see it. We have no, I just think the part where, but you don't ever see them when it's, you know, so you mean to tell me all that shit that happened last summer with George Floyd, y'all don't think it was nobody in all them whole
It
crowds?
was.
Oh, they was out there.
Wasn't no
We was
black
out there,
Especially now.
honey.
They were.
Especially now.
like, to me that sounds insane. But and then there was pushback from that particular thing. It was like, no, but sometimes you'll see the LBGT community stands with blah 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 blah. You know, they stand with abortion rights. They stand with, you know, so they'll be out there with their signs, and they intentionally put themselves out front and say this particular community stands with this particular cause. My pushback was, would the knife not turn on them if it was strictly a Black cause and we were out there and people were angry? Do you think that they would feel comfortable having a sign saying the LBGTQ community stands with George Floyd in the midst of any of the crowds that were out last summer? Do you think we've created a welcoming, and maybe we have, I'm just asking, do you think that we've created a welcoming atmosphere where they feel like they could bring their signs and identify themselves as a community inside of this larger community, and we stand with this community without receiving some harassment in the midst of that? Maybe they could. I don't know. I'm asking. So I'm throwing all of that out there. Discuss. Yeah, so
I'd like to answer that question. I feel like it was might not be a resounding no, but it's an unspoken no. Because if you just think about the momentum that the Black Lives Matter movement lost because the leaders were homosexual,
yeah, it was
I
a
think
big
that
deal.
says pretty much enough.
Mhm.
And I think a difference from how activism was done in the 50s and 60s is, as you said, it was more about the cause, more so my opinion.
Mhm. That's true. So I didn't even think about that. And when people found out that the founders of BLM were Black lesbians, all of a sudden BLM became a part of the agenda. Y'all didn't know that? Y'all had never heard that.
I did not know that.
Oh, it became a, and then that's when the whole source say the white man who they claim is funding, and them lesbians, they get money from the whoever his name was, George. So what was his name? From Soros or something like that, some German somebody, I don't know. But yeah, that was a huge thing last year. Like, we shouldn't be following Black Lives Matter because they were founded by 2 gay women. So they can't be proud to be Black too? Like, I'm just
This is one of the reasons why, and I can speak about this personally. This is the reason why LGBTQ, or however you identify, flee to people who they feel more comfortable and safer with, because we don't even feel comfortable in our own community. And that, like, for me personally, even I feel nervous around certain groups. Like, if it's a big Black community and everybody's vibing together and it looks too straight, it's not enough mixed crowd, it makes me feel some kind of way, because there's a lot of judgment even still, like, and they don't even know who I really am. Like, you look at me and you think I'm this lesbian who only mess with females and who is against men and hate having children and stuff like that. And if you even knew who I was, you know that I am attracted to men. I I actually do like having sex with men, and I do plan on having children with my wife. So it's not gonna be the way that you want it to be. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't even matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. But just because I look a certain way, you assume, certain things, and this is the energy that we're used to. So we'd rather go into these spaces where we feel more comfortable, and it shouldn't even be like that.
It's unfortunate, T, that you even have to have that whole disclaimer, that you have to completely reveal all that about yourself. Because here's the reality of it is, I wouldn't give a shit if they had 10 heads. I'm not even being funny. But when it comes to this struggle, this thing that we doing, can they lick an envelope and put it in the mail? Can they write a letter to the governor? Seriously, I mean, at that point, this is where we have to say, no matter who we identify as in our private lives, what the world sees first before they see anything else is this. And this unifies us in a way that nothing else can, all over the world. If you think that that's not true, go to Europe. Black people in Black Brits, they get the same shit we get from crazy Karens over there too. They get the same shit. Watch a video every now and again. Just scroll around. They getting the same. So this is around the world, and the reason why this exists around the world is because of what Europeans set out from Europe to do. They won. In my opinion, what I see now is a winning pair and a team over here that's got a straight flush. That's the highest you can have in the poker game. And we don't even know it. We don't even know it. They got one pair of eights. We sitting over here with four of a kind and we don't even know it. Because we're so busy deciding who is Black enough. And I'm saying if the agenda was straight, here's where I respect the LGBTQ community, because they decided that they wanted something. They unified as a community to have it. They had a specific list of demands. They did what the civil rights era did. Why y'all mad about the whole situation? They did exactly what Dr. King and everybody else, and the Black Panthers, all they did. They took the lesson from the book and they did it.
They did.
As a community. I think that's what we're more mad about than anything, to be quite honest with you. So what we already know about them is that they have an activist spirit to decide then that they're not Black enough. Or that because Soul was a different kind of brother, so he had to be gay, which made him less Black. Come on, people. We were organizing what we wanted to do, and we could find a place for everybody in our community. There could be a job for everybody in our community. And that's what I want to get to eventually. Go ahead, Mom.
Yeah, I would have never thought that it was that much fight or division among activism, and gender. I just wouldn't, because of that reason. It's like, if I'm getting my butt kicked over here, I'm calling somebody to know how to throw hands. I'm not gonna call somebody that is like, well, what are we gonna do when we get there? No, I want the person that knows how to fight, that knows the blueprint, that knows what to do, what to say, how to get it accomplished. So I don't see how that's stupid. I'm really surprised that they got upset even with Black Lives Matter group. I did not know that.
It was predominantly Black men. From what I saw, it could have been others, but it was predominantly. It was really, really big. I might try to go back and try to find some of them. It was really big, Mo. I mean, see what I'm saying? These two sisters, they out here pushing. They don't want the Black race to continue to procreate. What does that got to do? Hey, how is these two women, what they do when they bear, how is it stopping you from sticking your penis in a woman and getting her pregnant? This is what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I don't even know how else to say that, and I apologize.
That's real.
But please tell me how if anybody typing anything in the comments, because I am curious as to how.
My phone died, so I can't even see it no more.
Nobody's in the comments.
I just really want somebody who had an issue with Black Lives Matter, the founders of the group, to help me understand where that came from, because I'm trying to figure out how what they do with they nana, it belongs to them. They wash it, they clean it, it belongs to them. How what they do stopping you from making babies? Go ahead. So I be lost, but go ahead. Sorry.
Since we're transparent, I ain't gonna lie, I was one of those people that felt that way. I had this discussion behind scenes with Darius about it, and we talked. I still have my sentiments, but as time grew on and seeing the after effects of how foolish that decision was, and it goes back to just not enough study, and not enough foresight. It's not saying that they don't have vision, but they're too much in the emotions to understand the logic behind what they're saying. And I feel like that is once again coming from a place of hurt in my mind. When T was talking about having being divided, I think it stems when we see certain wins from the LGBT community is because we can't wrestle with the hurt that we've already been sustained and have not recognized that they have suffered some hurts that we probably, if we sat down and had a discussion about, we can reconcile with, understand you feel the same way, and just be empathetic, not even just as being Black people, but being from a human perspective, that you can feel pain, that you can feel misunderstood, this, that, and the third. Once we're able to, and this is gonna sound impossible to some people, heal while working. We don't have time to heal, and we don't have time to work. We just have time to heal and work and figure it out as we go. Like I said, me, myself, I can admit, I'm still scrubbing off mindsets that I know don't work, but I still do them habitually. So when we get able to come to one another, have conversations like this openly with some empathy, then we'll start getting somewhere. And then we can get to a point where we come together as a unit. And if you're not supporting them, we can't support you because we're with them. And build a point agenda where it's like, take the good of what you have, the good of what you have, the good of what you have, and say, if you're not meeting all these top points, we simply can't support you. We simply can't do this. And then they'll be more scared of us. But it goes back to, we have to come to a point where when is enough of the same thing we've been repeating over and over again, enough to stop. So I think a lot of that comes from we been so hurt so much that we just that's all we see, and we don't open our minds to other possibilities.
I agree. And I think that is a great place to start wrapping our podcast up this evening. If anyone has any last minute questions or thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap up.
I just want to thank y'all for opening up space for these conversations. I appreciate that more than anything. And it was just so good to hear different perspectives. Whether we agree with each other or not, there's still, you know what I'm saying, we still making space for each other. And I appreciate this group, this movement, Back to Love movement. That's what it's about in the first place. And
Yeah.
thank you. I'm just grateful.
B. Anderson hit us on the back channel and said, Back to Love is dope, right? So I get a feeling that he, we'll see. I don't know what's going on, but he's like, that's dope. What you guys are doing. B, if you are still watching, I encourage you to scroll through the page, go to our YouTube channel. Many of our old podcasts are on there. Feel free to check it out. We tend to discuss things this heavily every single week. Here's what I encourage you all to do for us to sort of get past this hump is find someone who you know identifies and whatever letter is you're comfortable with, because maybe transgender is too much for you and you can't find a place for that. That's fine. But find somebody women, I advise you, straight women, to find a gay woman and sit down and have a conversation with her about being a woman.
Mhm.
Start there. And my bet is that she had some old man say something creepy to her the same way you had some old man say something creepy to you. That she hates her period too, and in the 7th grade, she ruined a whole bunch of pants like you did.
Mhm.
I'd be willing to bet if you take the thing, you start the conversation from what you can visibly see is the same about you, that you'll find more likenesses than differences. And eventually all the labels that we've decided won't matter anymore, because in the end, Back to Love is about truly getting back to the love of our community. And we can't do that if we are not willing to embrace people that we've decided ain't Black enough. That's gonna be a podcast, What's Black Enough? I don't even think that was in one of this lists, but that's going on the list for certain. Next Sunday, we will be here with Shop Talk, 7 p.m. Natasha and Regina will be joining us, and then anyone here who would like to be a part of it. And we'll be talking about when it hurts so bad, when it hurts so good, staying too long in a bad relationship. The following week, is that Willie Lynch?
Willie Lynch.
The following week is the Willie Lynch conversation. And what we are talking about generally is the prescription and the prediction of that pamphlet. If you've not read it, it is on YouTube. You can listen to it audibly. Please do read it so that you can have a reference by which we'll be talking about that. And then we'll be back with some new ones in October as well. Thank you very much this evening for joining us. Thank you, cast. I appreciate you all. I appreciate you all being willing every week to come here and do this, but also to have the conversations that are sometimes hard to have in your other inner circles. I appreciate your truth and your transparency, but mostly I appreciate that we love each other, and that in the end, that comes through all the time. It is the engine to the revolution, you know? So thank you very much, guys, for joining us. We will see you all in 8 days, not next Saturday, but next Sunday, the 19th. Am I making that date up? The 19th? I think it's the 19th.
19th.
We'll see
It's
you
the
all
19th.
then. Have a
19th.
good evening. Say goodbye to the people.
Bye, people.
It was wonderful being with you all this
Bye.
evening. Have a safe and blessed week. All right, we're off. Stop.